And I thought for the last one, even though this is a sci-fi and fantasy convention, I would end with a poem. My last couple of books have been poetry, but this is a fantasy poem.
Just a reminder, about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, okay. Go fast. Nothing supernatural. As keychains go, it was absurd. So large it rubbed holes in the pockets of Amber's jeans and caught on everything and weighed so much she always dropped her keys, but her uncle told her it was lucky. She was 7 when he gave it to her, with a story about fairies or sprites or gremlins. It wasn't clear if he knew the difference. Some small winged creature trapped inside a hunk of metal, roughly a disc but not flat enough to be a coin, bulging in the middle where the creature was trapped in the circle of the runes carved in it, carved so deeply they made holes around the edges, holes big enough to bend a key ring through, and hang her house key, and the fob for her Toyota. Isn't fob a ridiculous word? Almost as ridiculous as believing some creature was captured and tuned alive, buzzing and angry and spitting magic, like a 4th of July sparkler. Who would want that in their pocket? But she was 7. A magic age, and now Amber was 23 and missed her uncle, and not so unmagical that she'd throw it away, but old enough to be embarrassed when she pulled it out of her pocket in a parking lot as a couple passed by, and the woman with bangs glanced at the flash that might have been a knife and started, and the man with a mustard stain on his shirt glanced at his wife and chuckled at her fear because men get to do that, and the woman shared a telepathic moment of understanding with Amber because women get to do that, and the moment was cut short when Amber dropped her keys again because the chunk of metal was so heavy, and also maybe the keychain jumped a little or buzzed or shocked her, but certainly that couldn't be possible, even less likely than the crow that flew right over her back. There were crows in the parking lot, no big deal, but it swooped between the cars and through the space right where her face would have been, and it didn't harm anyone, didn't even hit the easily startled woman with bangs, who screamed and fell backwards into the man with the mustard stain, who laughed again and stepped back into the path of the car that was only going a little bit fast for a parking lot, and it really wasn't the driver's fault. She didn't have auto insurance because neither of her jobs paid enough to for rent and food and gas and insurance, and it really wasn't the mustard stain man's fault. He didn't have health insurance because his company cut his hours, and it wasn't the company's fault because they just wanted to compete with a company somewhere else which also didn't offer health insurance or pay enough for rent and food and gas and auto insurance. But the driver would lose her apartment and live in the car she could no longer drive. There's nothing supernatural about being trapped inside a hunk of metal. And the mustard stain man would lose his house because of the medical bills the driver couldn't pay. And his wife with the bangs would lose her fear of muggers when she had no money. But she wouldn't lose her fear of parking lots because women don't get to do that. And the mustard stain man's company would lose to the company somewhere else, but the owners would still get to have health insurance. And Amber would only gain a disquieting story to tell, the guy behind the counter at the Toyota dealership, when she went to get a replacement for the broken fob and felt embarrassed when the guy saw her keychain and raised an eyebrow. So Amber sealed herself in the protection of a story. Just a story. Nothing supernatural about those. Just that some people are lucky. Lucky enough to drop a keychain and reach for it and hold on to magic.